Hello and welcome to the Car Care Nut Shop. So today we have a 2010 LS460, and I've told you in previous videos that you gotta be careful with these. While they are reliable and awesome, but things can get seriously complicated if you buy a neglected one or you have some repairs just simply from age and whatnot. This is a 12-year-old LS460. It has right around 140,000 miles, and the owner of this car have had multiple visits to the dealership for the same problem. They lose heat in the winter. Take it to the dealership, coolant's low, they top it off, bleed it, good, have a nice day. Then the next year, same thing. And the next year, same thing. He got fed up. He kept telling the dealership, there's gotta be a leak. Where is this coolant going? Oh, we can't find anything. So he brought me the car, we looked at it, and it took really 5 minutes to find out, just from known common problems with these, that there is a leak underneath the intake manifold. I knew exactly what it was, but there's also a chance that a head gasket might be leaking, so I told him we're going to need to take the intake manifold and look underneath it. So that's what we did. I'm going to give you a small tour of this massively common job with these and the V8. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. If you are a returning subscriber, well, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. And without further ado, let's get to work. So here's what we have. Let me show you. First, you notice the intake manifold is out. And that's because the leak is actually underneath it. This is actually the oil separator. This is where the PCV valve is on these. This sits directly underneath the intake manifold. Not the best spot to replace a PCV valve because you got to pull the intake, but hey, that's what they did and this is how it is. But now we go to the car where we're kind of mid-surgery here because I had to pull the intake manifold just to verify, is the heat exchanger leaking or the head gasket? And it is the heat exchanger. So here's what's going on with this heat exchanger. So in the middle, in the valley of the V8, there is a big behemoth that just cools that area of the block. There's oil that goes through it, and it's very, very simple. Just to cool the oil, kind of exchange, that's the name, heat exchanger. Kind of a fancy oil cooler, if you would. Sits right in the valley, super common to leak on the Tundras and the Sequoias, basically every single Toyota and Lexus model that has this V8, the UR series V8. This is the 1UR, the 3UR has the same thing. But let me show you why these engines, and I tell you this, these engines are one of the greatest engines ever made. But when things go south, they all of a sudden not become the greatest engines because they are so tightly packed. It's unbelievable. Let's look. It almost looks like a German car when you look here. So if we bring the camera right here, look in the middle, you see all that pink crust. That's the leak. And in this engine, because it is direct and port at the same time, you have port injectors are right here at the top, right here. These are the port injectors. And then over here, you have the direct injectors. This is the rail for the one side, and here's the rail for the other side. Now, this engine also has 4 NOx sensors because 2 is just not cool enough. So 4, there's one here, one there, and then 2 on this side. This coolant crust that you see, this is how coolant turns when it's leaking and you have very, very high heat. And this is an extreme high heat area. These wires are all brittle, they're really hard, and we're gonna have, unfortunately, to remove them all, so it's gonna be interesting. Then there is something that is of a very German design. This is the one German engineer on this team. They decided to put a pipe. This pipe is also notorious to leak. This goes into the front timing cover for the water pump on one side and then goes into the heat exchanger on the other. Has 2 tiny little O-rings, very well made, but they're also, with age, they will leak. Now you notice the gleaming absence of the starter. Folks, this was a mistake, and I'll tell you a small story about this. So, back when I worked at a dealership, when I first started at a dealership, there was a guy, God bless his soul, Bill Ness. He was one of my mentors. Fortunately, he passed away. He had the very, very first Tundras with the 5.7, with the 3UR, that had a bad starter. Under warranty, he's an old school mechanic. He's been working with Toyota for a very long time. He was upset because it was not the day that he was in a good mood, and he wanted just to get the starter done and let's go. He was used to the 4.7, the one before it, the 2UZ. He pulls the intake manifold out, and then he looks and he's like, where is the starter? Well, in this series of engine, they moved the starter to the side. Just so you know that. So there is no starter on these, it's only the 4.7 that has the starter. So this is the story of this engine. There's no starter there. On some of them you will have secondary air injection valves all the way in the back, but this one doesn't have it. Now, more common things with this engine is the water pump. And the owner of this car, let me remove the throttle body out of the way a little bit. The owner of this car actually just asked me, should I replace the original, as far as he knows, water pump? I told him it's not exactly included in the job because I gotta still remove the belt, remove the pulley, pull this. I mean, it's not really getting pulled out to do this job. But there's, of course, labor overlap. Then he ended up saying no, because really there is no leaks. If you look at it, you don't see any leaks on this water pump. So I wouldn't worry about it. At the end, I recommended, you know what, we can't just replace everything on the way, or this is not really on the way. However, what we are replacing is a PCV valve. Obviously, we're not charging any labor for that. And while we're here, let's talk about this engine a little bit. So in the Tundra, this is not too bad, but in this, I mean, I can barely put my hand here. Doing a valve cover on this is a little bit of a project. Now, this particular car does have an oil leak from the high pressure fuel pump. This is for a direct injector. There's one here, one on the other side. This does have a little bit of seepage. Not too bad, but this is something the owner knows about, will address in the future. But the last spark plug is really difficult to get to. You might be better to remove the battery. A little difficult to get to, but not impossible. Nothing like German land. This is still not a German car. Then we go to the other side of the engine. It's a little better, but still, I can't put my hand here. You don't have a battery in the way, but you do have some computers in the way. The last spark plug is really difficult. This side is also seeping from the high pressure fuel pump right here. But otherwise, this engine is actually, they don't really have a lot of common problems. One of their major common problems is that leak right there. Other one is the cam towers leaks on these. So what I don't understand is, why does the dealership see a coolant that goes down and just completely ignore it? I mean, this is work for the dealership. I don't understand. This is a super common problem. I used to see this on the Tundras and Sequoias all the time. Whenever you have a mysterious coolant leak from these, it's the valley. It's the heat exchanger leaking. One after one after one. Sometimes it's a water pump, sometimes it's a radiator, something you'll see. Some of them, there was a coolant pipe that is like this one on the side on the Tundras. They used to corrode and leak. Not as common, that one, only in the Rust Belt, but the valley leak, it was very common on these. I don't understand why the dealership does not want to work, does not want to make their customer happy, fix the car right. Yeah, it's an involved job. Yeah, it's not really a high labor paying job, but it is a high labor job. But we're not in the business. This is the problem with technicians, folks. They want to do what they want to do, not the hard jobs. I don't think this is really hard, but it's just more involved and a lot could go south. All these wires in the valley that you got to take out, potentially all of them will break. Now you're fixing connectors and doing all that, but you know what? That's what we signed up for. We fix cars for a living. This is how it is. If we don't like it, we go do something else. As simple as that. Folks, while we're here, this thing's going to sit here. And I want to say one thing before we wrap up this one. That heat exchanger, we're actually going to replace it. Because something I've noticed from experience, when you pop these out, some of them develop a mini crack. And then you have a leak again. You're not going to see it right away, but a year later, customer loses heat again. So I always recommend replacing them because they're only around just over 200 bucks. You're doing this job, you're paying this high labor. 200 bucks sounds like a deal. When you guarantee that there's no cracks, it's a new unit, you're good. While we're here, let's take you on a small tour, show you what we got going on in the shop here. So this is kind of, we usually film in between appointments. This car is a drop-off. Obviously, we ordered the parts for it, and it'll be here when it gets here. That's how things are with parts lately. Excuse the mess. We're in the middle of this is a typical working day here at the shop. This beautiful, I think 19 or 18 ES350, which is regular maintenance, oil change, tire rotation, transmission fluid is at 60,000 miles. And we're also doing wiper inserts. You notice the wipers are in the up position. Folks, always use Toyota wiper inserts. They're the best. I know some people recommend, and if you're not familiar with what inserts are, this is how they look like. If you have the original wipers that came from the factory, most models you can do this. And the other project that we have in the shop that has been getting bigger and bigger, and you notice I am in the process here of re-engineering the wheel. This is the mirror out of that beautiful LS430. And the mirror, it's loose. When you activate it, it just goes all over the place. And right now, as I have this vice grip on it, it actually will work right. But what happens with these is this breaks from the heat. Remember, this car is from Alabama. Once this pops off, this no longer holds. When I push it down, it actually locks and holds. This is broken, tabs are broken. I tried everything, glue it, do something, figure something. No, it's not gonna happen. And if I do something and it works, it might work for a week, then back to the same thing. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to replace this mirror. And something very cool about this mirror, most mirrors are plastic, they're all plastic. This is actually metal. All the guts are metal. 99% of mirrors are plastic. LS430, they're all metal. This ES350, all plastic. Nothing is metal inside of this thing. Maybe just a spring that holds it. This is the cool thing about these LS430s. Now let me kind of update you on this one, because you've been seeing this in a lot of videos in my channel, and it's just sitting there in the background. It's actually not just sitting there. We're slowly working on it. This is a Survivor car. You've seen it in the previous video. We got the timing belt done. We have a bunch of fluids to do on it yet, but we're waiting for the major things. And the major things are, and we're also mid-surgery in this, so owner of this car, if you see it, don't get upset. We're mid-surgery here. So all 4 door locks don't work. They work, but once you activate them 2-3 times, they just stop working. It's very super common problem with these. Again, we're going to talk about common problems with this one. Door locks, navigation screen doesn't work, and the mirrors, not as common, but the mirrors are also a common thing with these, where they just come apart from heat. Otherwise, these are beautiful. If you find one of these that doesn't have the navigation, and please, whatever you do, do not buy one with the soft closed doors, because you are in for a surprise when one of these door locks go out. The door lock actuator on this is around 300 bucks, just over. Very expensive. Owner wants to fix it right. He wants to do all 4 door locks original. Yes, you can go aftermarket, all that, but he's preserving this car. He wants to fix it right. But if you have soft closed doors on the Ultra trim, which basically means you close the door like this, it'll close it the rest of the way on its own. That is $1,000 each lock. Gets ridiculous, folks. So if you're buying one of these, avoid the Ultras. Avoid the one with the soft close, because things get really expensive. So, and that car needs an oil change. That's my car, actually. It has been parked here for now a very long time, and so much that we're actually due by time on the oil change. So we're gonna do that, and we'll probably film it to give you guys an update and everything. Folks, with that, be careful with the LSs. This is the best car ever made, unless you buy one with the soft close and they all out. You're gonna be hurting. The LS460, while it is a beautiful car and it is reliable, but they do tend to have more common problems than these. Suspension on that falls apart completely at some point. This, however, the LS430, not as much. Believe it or not, these don't fall apart as much as the LS460. But the LS460 has more modern amenities and all this stuff, and people get drawn to them. Be careful with the LS460s. Buy one in good shape, you're not going to have problems. Buy one that's neglected, you're going to be sorry. Folks, I hope this video was helpful and informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. And until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.